Hello. Welcome. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are in the world. Before we get started with practice today, I invite you to grab any props that you may want to use for today's practice. I'm only using a yoga mat and 2 blocks. If you have either of those, great. Otherwise, you can still do the practice just as good. Now, let me ask you before we get started. This is how I have been starting my days as of late. So I was thinking, if you want to, since I have been doing that myself, would you like me to pull a card for us? Maybe it inspires your week. Maybe it inspires your practice. Maybe it just inspires the next breath. So if you're not someone that's into cards, totally fine. You can toss it. Or you can also consider that things mean whatever you make them mean. It's the same as if you see a bird or something in nature. Many people think that those things mean things. Again, it means whatever you make it mean, however it serves you. So if it aligns with you, great. Otherwise, toss it, just like everything else in today's practice. So I'm going to take a breath, and then I'm going to split this in 2. Now, just let me know, right or left. All right, left. Ooh, Tanit, pleasure. So this is from the African goddess rising oracle, and this is Tanit, pleasure. Let me tell you what it has to say. So Tanit is the goddess of pleasure from Tunisia. The temple is the conjurers, and the element is air. Tanit was the goddess of the stars in ancient Carthage. Today, all the way over in Ibiza, they still have pleasure-filled full moon midnight table dancing parties in her name. Tanit's guidance. You are thirsty for more pleasure. You can't thrive when life feels dry. You are made of laughter and stardust, not sawdust. Pleasure is your birthright, a gift from the universe. And the embodiment of this is, how much juicy pleasure can you stand? Turn up the pleasure principle. You secretly feel that you don't deserve it, but pleasure is a healing and manifesting force. Laughing, loving, and orgasmic joy is holy. And the goddess declaration is, it feels good to feel good. There's Tanit. So that's pretty awesome. So let's take a deep breath and let go. So again, do with that what you will. But I do invite you to consider, perhaps in today's practice, where can you invite more pleasure, whatever that means. And notice that it doesn't have to be just related to sex. It's also related to joy, to laughter, to enjoying the things that you do, the people that you do them with, right? Just like enjoying your life. And also perhaps finding pleasure and enjoyment in movement. So with that being said, grab any props that you may need. And my invitation is that when you make choices throughout the practice, is that you invite this joy, this pleasure, space for you to be able to feel creative and expansive. So bring yourself to lie down on your back. Bringing your feet about hip distance apart, or maybe a little bit wider. And then let your knees rest over one another. You can let your hands rest on your abdomen or maybe next to you on the floor. And maybe for a moment you wiggle your fingers and your toes. You can also move your head a little bit side to side. And slowly find yourself still, arriving into the moment. Whether it's the beginning, the middle, or the end of your day. Let yourself create a clear demarcation so that this moment is a pause for realignment, for rediscovering, just as you notice how you feel. Take a deep breath in through your nose and out through the nose or the mouth. Inhale, allowing yourself to be a little bit more expansive into the belly, the rib cage, the chest. Side out. One more deep breath in. And out. Softening toward the earth, letting the ground catch you and support you. Observe the sensations in your body. Again, maybe you are aware of the areas of your body that feel tight or uncomfortable or painful. But let yourself also connect to a sense of pleasure, of openness, of softening, of being exactly as you are. Take a deep breath in through the nose and out through the nose or the mouth. One more breath. Inhale. Exhale. If it resonates with you, bring one hand to your abdomen and one hand to your heart. Noticing your heartbeat, the rise and the fall of the breath. And starting to become aware of your capacity for being present with what is. Not just what's around you, but also within you. Recognizing where your mind is, what you're giving attention to. And perhaps making a conscious choice to, just for this breath, be as present as you can possibly be. Deep inhalation through the nose. Open your mouth inside out. Stretch your arms overhead as wide as you want to, or maybe you catch opposite wrists or opposite elbows. Inhale. Open your mouth, exhale. Allow your feet to remain wide as you slowly point your knees up toward the ceiling. Notice if your low back is really arched here, press it gently down toward the floor a little bit more. So as much as your back body as possible is grounded. Take a deep breath in. And on your exhalation, allow your knees to go a little bit to the left. They don't have to go all the way by any means. Just go as far as you want to go once you find the sensation that serves you. Inhale, come back through center, allowing the back to ground onto the earth. And on the exhalation, take your knees over to the right. Maybe your gaze goes over to the left. Inhale, come back through center. Exhale, knees to the left, maybe your gaze to the right. Breathe in through center. Breathe out, knees to the right. Bring your knees back through center, take a deep breath in. And on the exhalation, heel toe your feet gently toward one another. They don't have to touch, but allow the knees to draw open. They can go as open as you want. Press the outer edges of the feet toward the floor just for a moment. Lift your chest just a bit. Breathe in. And as you breathe out, gently draw the knees toward one another. And hug your right knee toward your chest. You can allow the weight of the leg to be sufficient, or maybe you catch your right leg under the thigh or over the shin with your hands. And perhaps for a moment you create a couple of circles with your right hip one way and then the other, but just make sure that what truly matters here is your breath. One more inhale. And on your exhalation, lower your right foot next to the left. Press down through your feet. Bring your arms next to your body with your palms down. Maybe you stay here, or on your next inhalation, lift your hips up as little or as much as feels good, opening through the front body. And on the exhalation, lower your hips down toward the earth and hug your left knee to the chest this time. Perhaps its own weight is sufficient. Perhaps you interlace your hands underneath your thigh. Feel free to take a couple of circles one way and then the other. One more breath. Inhale. And exhale. Release your left foot back to the floor. Feel free to keep your arms next to your body or take them overhead. And on your inhalation, lift your hips up if you want to. Lift your chest up toward the chin a little bit more. And on the exhalation, lower everything back down. Start to roll yourself toward either side. And then press yourself up toward a seat. Take your time to do that. There's no rush. And perhaps sit cross-legged on the floor. Perhaps you keep one leg extended. You could also grab one of your blocks and slide it underneath your sitting bones so you create a little bit more height here. And that may feel more comfortable on your hips and allow your spine to get a little bit longer here. Take a deep breath in as you lift your shoulders up toward your ears. And on your exhalation, roll them back and down. Do that 2 more times. Inhale, lift your shoulders up. Exhale, roll them back and down. One more, breathe in. And breathe out. Let your shoulders relax, let your neck lengthen, and then shoulder blades toward one another. Inhale, take your shoulders up. Exhale, roll them forward and down. A few more times at your own pace. And eventually slow down the movement. Allow your hands to rest on your lap or your thighs, or perhaps you bring your fingertips to the sides. It really might depend on the length of your arms. If you still have your blocks available, especially if you have 2, maybe you bring the blocks to the floor and the hands to the floor. Or, like I said, perhaps your hands are on your knees or your thighs. Lengthen your neck, inhale. And on the exhalation, bring your right ear to the right shoulder. Take a moment here to stay, or maybe move your chin up and down until you find a place where you're like, a little bit of pleasure. One more breath. Come back to center as you inhale. Exhale, take the other ear toward the opposite shoulder, finding space this time through the right side of the neck. Your chin can lift or lower until you find the sensation that you're seeking, no more, no less. One more deep breath in and out. Bring your neck back to neutral. Ground through your sitting bones. Inhale, take your arms out to the sides. And on the exhalation, bend your elbows and start to bring your hands behind your head. Perhaps your hands interlace, but it's not necessary. Just draw your elbows wide, lift your chest a little bit, find space, breathe in. And as you breathe out, draw your elbows toward one another and round your back, gaze down toward your navel. Do that 2 more times. As you inhale, you open and lift. And as you exhale, round. One more, inhale to open. Exhale to round. Open up, breathe in. Feel free to keep your hands behind the head or open them out to the sides, whatever feels most spacious. And on the exhalation, take your left hand toward your right knee and your right hand either onto your hip or behind you on the floor. Breathe in to lengthen. Breathe out just a little more. One more inhale. And exhale. Keep your left hand on your right knee and start to send your right arm up. Breathe in. And as you breathe out, take your torso forward and cross your right wrist over the left or your right elbow over the left. Either way. You can keep your arms stretched if you find enough sensation here, or start to bend at the elbows, letting your hands rest wherever they land on your arms or your shoulders. And notice the difference between keeping your elbows down or lifting them, or perhaps even bringing the backs of the hands toward one another or the palms of the hands toward one another. Let yourself breathe. in stillness, or maybe finding a little bit of movement side to side. Breathe in. Breathe out. One more. Inhale. Exhale. If you're moving side to side, pause at the center. Open your arms wide. Inhale here. Exhale, start to take your right hand to your left knee, left hand either on your hip or behind you on the floor. Ground through your sitting bones evenly, lengthen through your spine. Inhale. And on your exhalation, maybe you twist a little bit more. But again, can you make being spacious more important than deepening the twist, perhaps? One more breath. Keep your right hand on your left leg, and on your inhalation, extend your left arm up. And as you bring your torso forward, start to cross your left arm over the right, whether that's at the wrists or the elbows is up to you. You could remain here or bend your elbows and take your hands toward opposite shoulders. You can stay here or bring your arms maybe to eagle. But again, one's not better than the other. One side may need something different than the other as well. So give yourself full permission to embrace what presents itself to you in this movement and breath practice. How do you choose to love yourself in this new week? One more breath. Pause at the center, open your arms wide, breathe in. And on your exhalation, your hands land behind you on the floor. If you're sitting on something, it may be time to move it out of the way. You can also walk your hands as far back as you need to plant them on the floor behind you. And on your next inhalation, open from collarbone to collarbone, lift your chest. Stay here, or perhaps press into your shins and lift your hips off the floor as well, opening through the front body just a bit more. One more breath, inhale. And on your exhalation, if you lifted your hips, lower them down, ground through the sitting bones, find length through the spine. Inhale, reach both arms up. Interlace your hands overhead and then bring your elbows in front of you. Take a moment here to either stay or start to create circles or circle eights with your wrists. Mobilizing through the hands, the wrists. Then pause and switch directions. This may challenge your brain a bit. That's okay. Notice what your capacity is for allowing for that to be a playful and joyful thing instead of a frustrating thing. And whatever you have capacity for, that's totally fine. Just notice. Breathe in. And as you breathe out, release your hands. Maybe shake your wrists, shake your arms a little bit. Inhale. And exhale. Let yourself lean back for a moment. Bring your legs around. And start to come onto either a tabletop position on hands and knees, or if you rather, move your hands a handprint forward, tuck your toes, and send your knees and your hips up and back for downward dog. If you find yourself with your knees off the floor in this inverted V position, maybe you pedal out your legs for a moment. If your knees are down on the ground in tabletop, feel free to move your hips side to side, or create a few cat-cows, arcing and rounding your spine. Wherever you are, let your breath matter more than the shape. One more deep breath in and out. Bring your knees down to the floor if they're not already there, and walk your hands toward your knees, lifting yourself up, hands to your hips. If your knees are sensitive, feel free to pinch your mat, double fold it, and then place your knees there, or maybe you use a blanket if you have one accessible. But start to shift your weight toward your left leg, and then slowly start to step your right foot forward. For some of us, it may require to take your hands down and grab your right ankle with your hand and help it forward. If you have your blocks, this is a great place to frame your right foot with them and utilize them to help you lift your chest up as you find this low lunge here. Stack your right knee and ankle over each other as much as feels good and lift your chest. And you could stay here with your hands on your blocks or on your thighs. If there's a wall near you, you could also take the hand to the wall, for support. Take a deep breath in. And on your exhalation, stay or hinge at your hips beginning to extend your right leg as little or as much as feels good. For some folks, you may require sliding the right heel forward a bit. Inhale, plant your right foot, send your hips forward, lift your chest as little or as much as you want. Exhale, shift the hips, extend your right leg. Find sensation. Inhale, shift forward, lift your chest. And exhale, shift back into half split. Ground down through the right heel. Draw your right hip slightly back and your left heel slightly forward, staying here, noticing the stretch for a moment more. Perhaps you wiggle your toes from right to left, dialing them from side to side. One more breath, inhale. And exhale. Shift your weight forward enough that you can bring your right leg to meet the left once again. Maybe you take a moment in tabletop, moving side to side. Maybe you tuck your toes under and send your hips back to the heels to stretch through the feet for a moment. Inhale through the nose. Exhale through the nose or the mouth. One more deep breath in and out. Bring your hands to your hips, or you could bring your hands to the floor as you step your left foot forward. It's absolutely up to you. Align your left foot under your ankle and your knee as much as feels good, and draw your left hip back and your right hip slightly forward. Allow your hands to remain on the ground, your blocks, your left thigh, whatever feels best. Taking a moment to notice what this lunge feels like on this side, not as comparison, but just as information. And maybe you remain here as you inhale. And on the exhalation, stay or hinge at the hips, extending your left leg any amount until you find sensation. Notice the difference between flexing your foot, pointing it. Inhale, shift forward. Find space into the front of the hips, the chest. Lift your gaze, perhaps. Exhale, shift back. One more. Inhale, shift forward. And exhale, shift back, stay there. Maybe you slide your left heel a little bit forward. Just play with the sensation until you find something that, again, perhaps it's on the edge where you're almost at discomfort, or perhaps what you're seeking today is just a space where you can relax and breathe a little bit deeper. Feel free to dial your toes from side to side or stay in stillness. One more breath, inhale, and exhale. Shift your weight a little bit forward. Take your left leg back to meet the right. And slowly shift your weight forward toward your abdomen. Bring your hands underneath your shoulders. Squeeze your elbows straight back and press the tops of your feet to the ground. And on your inhalation, lift your chest, opening the front of the body. And on the exhalation, lower. Two more like that. Inhale to lift. Exhale to lower. Inhale, press up into your back bend. Exhale, press your hips back. Find your tabletop again with the knees to the ground, or maybe tuck your toes. Send your hips up and back for downward dog. Deep breath in through the nose. And out through the nose or the mouth. Whether your knees are down or lifted, start to gaze toward the top of the mat and take your time to walk yourself there, feet parallel to one another. Once again, your hands could be on the floor, but if you have blocks, feel free to bring your hands to the blocks, or perhaps your shins or your thighs. Inhale to lift your chest halfway. And on the exhalation, fold and bring the backs of your hands to either your blocks or the floor, so you stretch through the wrists for a moment. So bend your knees enough that you can bring the backs of the hands either to the blocks or to the floor. Breathe in. And breathe out. Press through your feet evenly and rise up. Take your arms out to the sides and overhead. Deep breath in. Perhaps your hips press forward and your gaze lifts up. Exhale, slowly draw your hands together in front of your heart. And perhaps they remain there. Or you can bring one hand to your heart, one hand to your abdomen. Soften your gaze or close your eyes. And take a moment to notice your heartbeat. To notice how you arrive into this day, into this week. And perhaps I invite you to consider one thing, one action that you will choose to take or perhaps not take today, to invite more pleasure, more joy into your life. Deep breath in, sigh out. Open your eyes, take your arms out and up. Inhale, palms unite overhead. Exhale, soften your knees and fold forward. Take your hands toward the floor, so bend your knees enough. Relax your head down. Inhale, flat back, hands to the floor or the shins. Exhale, bend your knees enough to plant your hands onto the floor and step your feet back for a plank. You can keep your knees off the floor or lower them down. It's up to you. Inhale. And on the exhalation, slowly lower. Lift your chest up for a cobra. Breathe in. And as you breathe out, keep your knees on the ground. Bring your big toes to touch. Separate your knees and send your hips back toward the heels, as little or as much as you want. You could also make a pile with your fists to rest your forehead down or use a block. And take a moment to move side to side. Breathe in and breathe out. One more inhale and exhale. Take your arms forward, press yourself up, and then slide your right shin diagonally in front of your left leg. For some folks, taking your left leg straight back, keeping the top of the left leg is where it's at. For some other folks, bringing your right hip to the floor and then the left knee to the side, perhaps that's where it's at. Keep your hands in front of you as you lift your chest. Breathe in. And as you breathe out, perhaps you stay if this is where the sensation is pleasurable for you, or where you find space to breathe. Or maybe you rather lean yourself a little forward using a block, or perhaps taking your elbows or your forehead to the ground. One more breath wherever you are. Inhale and exhale. On your next inhalation, slowly press yourself up. And you could shift by coming back to your tabletop, or you could lean back a little bit and simply switch sides. So bring your left leg in front of you and your right knee is either on the side, bringing on the inner side of your right leg, or perhaps you keep taking the leg back, back, back until you're on the top of the leg. Wherever you are, take a couple of breaths here, lifting your chest a bit more. And eventually you could stay here, breathe in. And as you breathe out, maybe you bring yourself down to the elbows on your block or on the floor. And just take a couple of breaths. One more breath. And on your inhalation, rise. Lean toward your left sitting bone if you're not already there. Bring your right leg around and bring your feet in front of you, as narrow or as wide as works for you. And perhaps you give yourself a hug, relaxing your head down. Feel free to sway side to side for a moment. Breathing in and out. One more inhale and exhale. Slowly lift your chest up and slide your left leg underneath in front of you. Draw your right foot in front of your left shin, or if you rather, you could bring it across your left knee. Lengthen through your spine as you inhale, and on the exhale, hug your right knee and take a twist to the right. Let your spine remain long, your breath steady. One more breath. Slowly come back through center. Let yourself switch sides, so this time your right foot comes in and your left foot is on the floor in front of you, bending the knee. You could stay here, or again, maybe bring it across. Just notice what feels best on this side. Lengthen through your spine as you inhale. And on the exhale, hug your left knee with your arm, with your right arm, and bring your left hand behind you for a twist. One more breath wherever you are. And then slowly let yourself return to center. And take a moment to stretch out through the legs and shake them out. Now consider what would bring you more ease in the next few moments, if ease is what you're seeking. Perhaps you lie down. Perhaps you find a comfortable seat. Just consider what would bring you more to balance as you begin this week. What would support your intentions as you let this practice integrate just for a few moments. So again, maybe you sit, maybe you lie down. Use any props that you may need. Wiggle your fingers and your toes, move your head side to side. And then let yourself come to stillness, even if it's just for a few moments. Deep breath in. Side out. Rest. If you have extra time today, I invite you to remain in stillness for 3 to 5 more minutes. If it's time for you to move on in this Monday, this beginning of the week, just give yourself one more moment in complete stillness. Taking a deep breath in through the nose and out through the nose or the mouth. Reminding yourself of the importance of rest and self-care. Not just when you feel good, but also when you don't. Begin to move your fingers and your toes. Stretch out. Yawn. If you're lying down, start to bring yourself to a seat. And I invite you to either rest your hands on your lap or your knees. Perhaps if Anjali Mudra resonates with you, that's what you choose. Or maybe one hand to the abdomen, one hand to the heart. And just take a moment to recognize any shifts, no matter how small, how mundane. Reinstating your intention for the week if it serves you. Or perhaps letting it go if it has already served its purpose. Take a deep inhalation. And as you exhale, repeat within or without, thank you, thank you, thank you. Let your eyes start to blink open if you close them. Start to move again. Thank you so much. I hope that you have enjoyed this Monday yoga practice, gentle, nourishing, and that invited you, hopefully, to set an intention that will invite you to bring more joy and more pleasure into your life. I hope that you have a beautiful start to your week, that you find, once again, spaces to take care of yourself physically, mentally, and emotionally. And notice, especially in times where you're leaning into a lot of effort or difficult things, how are you finding balance and creating spaces of joy and pleasure? And if it's hard for you to do it on your own, consider leaning onto the people that you love and that perhaps right now have the capacity. And, have a little bit of fun. Get playful. See what you can do that brings you joy. All right. I hope that you have a beautiful week. Until we meet again, take care and be well. Bye, everybody.